Welcome to Priceless Takes.
And we are live from South Carolina in the United States. Welcome back, everyone, to Priceless Takes, episode 38. I am your host, Luka Price, and joining me today is no one. That's right, you guys have me just for today. Unfortunately, Gabe is not able to be with us due to other commitments, and David, our longtime guest, is unfortunately feeling unwell. So, you guys will do the show just with me today, but we still have plenty to talk about because the NFL season is underway. Week 1 has officially wrapped up, and there are headlines. We will get right into it with all the reactions from the first week of the NFL season. Starting with Monday Night Football. Last night, the New York Jets faced off against the Buffalo Bills. The New York Jets out-edged the Bills 22-16 in overtime. The rookie, Xavier Gipson, goes off on a 50, 65-yard punt return touchdown to give the Jets the win in overtime. But while that was all and well, the bigger story, Jet star acquisition, Aaron Rodgers, former four-time MVP of the league, goes down with a torn Achilles tendon on his fourth ever play as a Jet. He is out for the season. Zach Wilson, the backup, came into the game 14 of 21, 141 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception to lead the Jets to that victory. Breece Hall, the running back who provided a lot of help for the Jets last year before tearing his ACL in his first game back of the season, 10 carries, 127 yards. On the other side, Josh Allen, 29 of 41 completions, 236 yards, and the touchdown is all and well. But the other story of the game, Josh Allen, 3 interceptions, 1 lost fumble, 4 total turnovers, absolutely killed the Bills in this contest when they really should have been winning. They were favored to win the game even with Aaron Rodgers as the quarterback, let alone Zach Wilson coming in and taking the helm. Listen, what a game we saw. Obviously, I'll talk about Aaron Rodgers first because this is a huge blow. We were talking about in our last episode, what do we expect out of the Jets? Obviously, Gabe nor myself had the Jets going into the AFC Championship game, but we still both had the Jets as a playoff lock. I was under the firm belief that although the Jets, I didn't think were up there with the other teams in the AFC, they had the chance to go on a wild card run or surprise everyone and win the division. But they were the real X factor of the AFC. And now for Aaron Rodgers to have a season-ending injury, their Super Bowl hopes are gone. And I would go as far to say, in this AFC climate that we are currently in, their playoff chances are gone because, quite frankly, I just do not believe Zach Wilson leading the team is going to reach the playoffs with the Jets core. We understand what the defense brings to the table. Jordan Whitehead with 3 interceptions, all 3 interceptions last night on Josh Allen, coming over from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Great acquisition for the Jets after the injured Chuck Clark tore his ACL in preseason. But nevertheless, the Jets have just completely become isolated from the playoff picture. I didn't have the Dolphins in my playoff picture, and after their week 1 performance, I probably regret that. But now with the Jets losing Aaron Rodgers, I will firmly slide the Dolphins into my playoff picture. I might even go as far to say they will win the division based off what I saw yesterday, but we will get into that later in the episode. The Jets were predicated around the success of Aaron Rodgers. They were a quarterback away from getting to the Super Bowl, if not winning the Super Bowl. Their defense, like I just said, was legit. Sauce Gardner was having his way with Stephon Diggs for most of the night. There were some parts where he wasn't. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, their season is over. They play the Cowboys next week at Jerry World. I anticipate that the Cowboys have a similar game to how they absolutely demolished the Giants. I give the Jets defense a lot more credibility than I do the Giants defense, but those Cowboys looked legit. I think the Jets are going to struggle mightily with Zach Wilson, particularly with Nathaniel Hackett as the OC. I think that he was built very much towards Aaron Rodgers and not towards Zach Wilson at all. I think that is not necessarily the best matchup I want to see from my QB offensive coordinator standpoint. Now, something that I have brought up time and time and time again pertaining to the Buffalo Bills. And this was a glaring example the other night. Josh Allen struggled in New York last year against the defense they'd lost. They barely beat the Jets in Buffalo against Mike White, winning 16-13. Sorry, 19-16. That game went to overtime as well. But 4 turnovers in his opening game of the season. The Bills were favored even with Aaron Rodgers as the starting quarterback for the Jets. Zach Wilson comes in, and Josh Allen, realistically, the Jets put up a field goal drive and a touchdown drive. They put up 2 field goal drives after the Josh Allen fumble. Josh Allen cannot take care of the football. He's a turnover machine. He was 14 interceptions last year, second overall in the NFL, only behind Dak Prescott. He cannot take care of the football. He looked lost out there last night. And there is something that is brewing in Buffalo that I have predicted for a number of years now that is going to result in catastrophic change in the organization. And I believe that one of those 2 changes needs to come from Josh Allen or from Sean McDermott as the head coach. Stephon Diggs, the team's number 1 wide receiver, was disgruntled after their playoff horror show against the Cincinnati Bengals at home in Buffalo. I don't think he'll be too happy after last night's performance. He was obviously encouraging Josh Allen on the sidelines, but nevertheless, the Buffalo Bills, I did not think we would see this from Josh Allen this early in the season, because last year he started off the season incredibly strong. He went into LA, the Super Bowl defending champion Rams, and put 30 plus points on their heads. He starts off the season incredibly well for the most part. So, ladies and gentlemen, I was not expecting this to happen so early in the season. However, the caliber of the Jets defense brought this out of Josh Allen, but at the same time, those interceptions were careless, particularly the second interception throwing into 2-on-1 coverage. Stephon Diggs was double covered, not to mention the fumble at the most critical point of the game. The game was tied up. The Jets had just gone on a touchdown drive. The Bills were completely in control. Josh Allen needed a field goal. He could have probably run the clock down if he got in the field goal. But what does he do? He fumbles the ball, hits it into his own player, gets it back, loses it a second time, and then fumbles the ball in New York territory, setting them up for a field goal. They were lucky to not get a touchdown because Breece Hall got stuffed in the backfield on one of those plays. I believe it was second down, and forced them into a field goal to go conservatively for the rest of the game. But the Miami Dolphins have moved now as the favorites to win the AFC East. I am not quite ready to go there just yet, because I still think that despite Josh Allen's struggles, the Bills are still a good regular season team. I think he will bounce back. However, in the playoffs is a completely different story, and this is a sign to come. But I will keep saying over and over and over again, just like I have been for several years now, Josh Allen is not the guy. Something needs to change in Buffalo. Absolutely horrific performance last night. He should be ashamed of himself. He seemed that he was ashamed of himself in the post-game presser, commenting on how you can't win a game with 4 turnovers. And I completely agree, Josh, but at the same time, you're the one committing those turnovers. So something's got to change. You got to get better. Otherwise, it's going to be another disappointing season in the divisional round, and you are either going to be gone as the quarterback, which I don't think will happen because they signed you to that huge contract, or Sean McDermott will be gone as your coach. And I think that is the more likely course of action. Now, moving on to the Dolphins. The Dolphins went up against the Los Angeles Chargers this weekend. Tua Tagovailoa outdueled Justin Herbert 36-34 in Herbert's house in LA. Tua 28 of 45, 466 yards, the second most he's ever thrown in a game. 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Tyreek Hill, the absolute menace that man is as a wide receiver. 11 receptions, 215 yards, and 2 touchdowns. On the other side, Justin Herbert finished the game 23 of 33, 228 yards and 1 touchdown. The story of the game offensively, besides Tua and his huge game passing off only 28 completions, Miami 70 rushing yards to the Chargers 234 rushing yards. The Chargers were ranked last in the NFL, averaging just over 70 rushing yards a game, and to come back with 234 rushing yards shows they have a much more balanced offense. But at the end of the day, their defense could not stop a moving fly. Tua was just tearing them to pieces. Tyreek Hill was constantly finding himself open against whether it be J.C. Jackson, whether he blows by Derwin James in the backfield. Tyreek Hill was that guy. But the Dolphins were making plays all over the place. And in the end, their defense, led under the guidance of new DC Vic Fangio, someone who I'm very familiar with when he was the head coach of my Denver Broncos. That man knows defense. Sean Payton tried to lure him back to Denver to be his DC. Oh, he wasn't going to take it because can't really go back after getting fired as the head coach so soon after getting fired as the head coach. But he bought the house in that last possession against Herbert. He sacked him on 4th down to win Miami the game. And what a performance on the road by Miami. After losing in LA to the Chargers last year, 21-17, they came back and won this year. Now, this begs the question, what is the ceiling of the Miami Dolphins? Listen, I believe it was Sam Monson from Pro Football Focus who put the Dolphins in his Super Bowl. And when I first saw that pick, I quite honestly laughed. But looking at that again, it could happen. However, the biggest question mark for the Dolphins is Tua Tagovailoa's health. We know what problems he had with his concussions last year. And will this rear its ugly head again? I hope not. I really hope not. Teron Armstead, the star lineman they got last year, wasn't even playing in this game. Tua did well staying in the pocket. He was able to move outside of the pocket when he had to. And from this one game only, I was impressed with how Tua was poised and composed in the pocket. Now, if Miami are healthy, how do they compare to the Chiefs? How do they compare to a team like the Bengals or the Jags or even the Bills in their own division? Well, Miami nearly beat the Bills in Buffalo with Skylar Thompson as their quarterback last year in the playoffs in the cold. Do I think Tua Tagovailoa can do it? Yes. Yes, I do. But I still think when Tua Tagovailoa goes into his first playoff run as a Miami Dolphin, when you verse a quarterback like Burrow, or you verse a quarterback like Mahomes, or even to a lesser extent Trevor Lawrence, who's at least been in the playoffs, who like I said, has the potential, and I believe he will unlock this potential to have a meteoric rise this season. I just do not believe that Miami will be able to last against these teams. Now, Miami also gave up 34 points on defense. Now, they did bring the house at the end of the game. But when you look at these dynamic quarterbacks, how Mahomes uses his legs in the playoffs to make plays, how Burrow picks you apart from the pocket, I don't believe that the Miami defense, now granted, they will get Jalen Ramsey back. They will have that 1-2 punch of Xavier Howard and Jalen Ramsey. But Xavier Howard, he had a few pass interceptions called on him yesterday. I wasn't overly taken away with his performance. I think he struggled a bit out there. But you have Bradley Chubb coming off the edge. You have Christian Wilkins coming off inside the defensive line. Miami has some legit players on defense. But when you put them up against the heavyweights in the AFC, I believe as a ceiling, they can get to an AFC championship game. I don't believe they can get to a Super Bowl. But if you had to ask me, I think they're still a wild card team, maybe a divisional team if they draw the right team in the wild card. If they draw the Bills again, that could be a wild card upset. If the Ravens manage to win the division, which is even more unlikely now with J.K. Dobbins out for the season, could they beat the Ravens in a wild card? Yes, but I don't believe when you compare them to the other teams that they're quite there yet. Yes, I will be the first to admit I did overlook them in preseason, but In the AFC, it comes down to 3 spots, unless you have Miami winning the division, which I did not. And to take up these 3 spots, you have the Jets in their own division, the Chargers, the Ravens, those 4 teams for 3 spots. Unfortunately, one of these teams has to go. And I believe that the fourth team who doesn't get the wild card spot, nowadays, I think now with the Jets, I think it's a pretty clear-cut wild card spot. But if Miami keep going on the trajectory they're going, they could easily win the division over the Bills and push them into the wild card. They beat them in week 3 last year in Miami. So we will see how it goes for the Dolphins. But I did overlook them in preseason only because someone had to miss out. And I believe that the Ravens, the Chargers, and the Jets were all going to be better than Miami this year. Now, after beating the Chargers week 1, I do not think I can definitively say that the Chargers are better than the Dolphins. After the way Tua Tagovailoa played, I have to put the Dolphins above the Chargers in my AFC rankings until I'm shown otherwise. But moving now into the NFC, we will go to Sunday Night Football, where the Dallas Cowboys absolutely obliterated the New York Giants, 40-0. It is the biggest shutout ever on Sunday night in Dallas Cowboys history. The Dallas defense forced 3 turnovers in the game, 2 interceptions and 1 fumble. Stephon Gilmore, the debutant cornerback, future Hall of Fame cornerback Stephon Gilmore, picked up an interception in his first game, blocked field goal touchdown on the Giants' opening drive, and a pick 6. Basically before Prescott got on the field. He did have 1 drive for a field goal, but the Cowboys were up astronomically, and this game was already over before it even started. Dak Prescott finished the game 13 of 24 for 141 yards. Danny Dimes not throwing too many dimes in this game, 14 of 28, 104 yards and 2 interceptions. Tyrod Taylor ended up coming in right at the end to take some reps with the team. Now, this Cowboys defense looked legit. Can they come out of the NFC? If, and only if, Brock Purdy gets injured again, but that's not going to happen. They cannot beat the 49ers. I do not believe the Dallas Cowboys will come out of the NFC. Do they have a shot? They have a slim shot. Obviously, Dak Prescott didn't need to do much last night. We didn't really get to see what he looks like so far this season because, like I just said, the game was already over before it even had really begun. So, next week against the Jets was supposed to be a big test for Dak Prescott. Aaron Rodgers has historically owned the Jets. But now, despite Zach Wilson being the other quarterback on the other side, Dak Prescott will still have to test himself against this Jets defense. Defense travels on the road, and these boys from New York are going to cause Prescott some problems. CeeDee Lamb had 1 drop through his hands. He had 2 drops from his tight ends. This certainly didn't help Dak Prescott's cause. But in the playoffs the last 2 years, it has been the offense that has let the Dallas Cowboys down against the San Francisco 49ers both times. Now, Kellen Moore got fired last year. Mike McCarthy has taken reins of the offense this year. In my opinion, honestly, probably to protect his own job and to scapegoat from Kellen Moore, because otherwise Mike McCarthy's might be on the chopping block after this season. If they have another season in the divisional round with a prime Micah Parsons about to enter his prime, I think he's going to win Defensive Player of the Year this year. You've acquired Stephon Gilmore. You have Donovan Wilson in the backfield who didn't even play last night. You have DeMarcus Lawrence. You have Leighton Vander Esch. You have Trayvon Diggs lining up across from Stephon Gilmore. You have dogs on defense led by Dwayne Quinn, the best defensive coordinator in the NFL, who, if Mike McCarthy does lose his job, will be in prime position to take over as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. But I do not believe they will be able to get over the Brock Purdy hump. Now, do I believe they can get over the Jalen Hurts hump? I believe much more realistically they can get over the Jalen Hurts hump. Because I think, well, one, I think generally the Eagles are on a downwards trajectory this year, but also the Cowboys defense and the Eagles defense I believe that when the end of the season comes, these two defenses are going to be comparable, and it's going to come down to if Dak Prescott can outduel Jalen Hurts, which I believe he has the ability to, unlike against the 49ers, which I believe the 49ers defense is beyond both the Cowboys and the Eagles defense. I don't give the Cowboys much of a shot to come out of the NFC. Granted, they are the third team in the NFC, although they probably will end up as a wild card team. They are still the third team. So we will see how it goes. But moving on back to the AFC, my AFC Championship game prediction had some interesting aspects to it this week. One being very good and one being very bad. Because quite frankly, the Cincinnati Bengals stunk up the joint against the Cleveland Browns, losing 24-3. The most surprising game of the weekend, according to a lot of people. I was obviously still surprised. And obviously, to my faithful viewers, you know how much I love Joe Burrow. You know how much I love the Cincinnati Bengals. But I did have Cleveland winning this game because I do believe that the Bengals are a slow starting team. They need to find their rhythm, ease into the season. And once they get hot, they get hot. Joe Burrow had a career low 82 passing yards and 14-31 completion, which is under 50%, the worst of the weekend. And got absolutely whitewashed. He looked not scared, but Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith had him off his step in the pocket. He did not look comfortable. Whether that calf is still bothering him or not, I don't know. But the old saying goes, if you're out there, you're healthy. Burrow needs to do better. I believe he will do better. The Bengals went 0-2 last year and proceeded to win 14 of their next 16 games and then eventually lose in the AFC Championship game to Patrick Mahomes. I wrote an article this week on my sports blog. I'll leave the link in the description below about the Cincinnati Bengals and why I think we shouldn't be too worried about them. But on the other side of my AFC Championship game predictions, the Jacksonville Jaguars beat the Indianapolis Colts 31-21 in Indy. Trevor Lawrence, a third-year quarterback, my NFL MVP prediction, 24 of 32 for 241 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Not the game I was quite expecting him to have. But like Joe Burrow, I think Trevor Lawrence needs to ease into the season. Give him a game or two. Obviously, the Jacksonville Jaguars were overlooking the Colts, who have the youngest team in the NFL, a rookie quarterback starting in Anthony Richardson, who I was also very impressed by. He had the one careless interception, but he looked much, much better than I anticipated. I was not big on Anthony Richardson coming out of Florida, but he impressed me in his first game. I believe having Shane Steichen as their head coach is going to do wonders for Anthony Richardson in his development. He might continue to struggle at parts of this first year, but Trevor Lawrence is who we're here to talk about. Look, 10 points. It realistically could have been a 31-14 game. They had the touchdown off the Trevor Lawrence fumble, technically Trevor Lawrence fumble, but DeForest Buckner made a great play, stripped the Jacksonville rookie who should have done better. And realistically, 31-14 is a convincing win for the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're 1-0 on the season. And I think Calvin Ridley played exactly how I expected him to play. He looked electric from the wideout position. He looked unreal. Zay Jones, you saw what he did, had the big catch against the Indianapolis Colts for the touchdown. Should we be concerned about the Jaguars? No. Should we be concerned about the Bengals? No. These predictions, I still believe, are looking great after week 1. And we will continue to go through these predictions and more as the season progresses. We will be back on Friday with Gabe with some reactions of his own from the week 1 of the NFL season, along with our predictions for week 2. We have some marquee matchups, 2 matchups on Monday Night Football. But, ladies and gentlemen, that is all for Priceless Takes, episode 38. I am your host, Luka Price. Thank you for joining me on today's episode. Make sure to follow our Instagram and TikTok, as well as my sports blog, in the link below in the description. Thank you for listening. We will see you next time. That is all for Priceless Takes, episode 38. This has been your host, Luka Price, and we will see you next time.